Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in and checking out my latest video. Now, today's video is going to be talking about the upcoming matchup between Vasyl Lomachenko versus Devin Haney taking place on May the 20th. Now, guys, this is a fight that I'm really excited for. We have two fighters on different trajectories at this point of their career. We have Devin Haney as a young, up-and-coming fighter, the champion. He's a guy who is just getting better and better in every fight. He's a fighter who's been fighting since he was a teenager. This guy was 17 years old, fighting in Mexico as a professional. Went over to Australia to go and get his world title. So he's a fighter who definitely has got that throwback old school mindset to become great. Now, when we look at Vasyl Lomachenko, this is a living legend in the sport of boxing. Extremely decorated, one of the all-time great amateur fighters. Former world champion as well. This is a guy who is hungry to come and get this title from Devin Haney and reclaim his spot on the top of the throne. And this is what's going to make this fight so interesting. It's just these two different fighters. They have different styles, but nonetheless, we're going to get such a highly skilled matchup, and I cannot wait for this fight. Now, let's get right into it, guys, and first talk about both of these fighters and what they bring to the table. So let me first start off with Vasyl Lomachenko and what I think he brings to the table in this fight. When you look at Lomachenko, he has these beautiful angles that he uses. He's very heavy on his lead foot, extremely excellent footwork overall in general. You'll see him pivot side to side. He just lands these beautiful combinations. He's a fighter that is very unpredictable, excellent counter puncher. He's got some power as well. Excellent in late rounds, very consistent body puncher. He's a guy who will counter off people's jabs as well. Defensively sound. He's got the high guard. He just does so many things. His versatility is his biggest attribute, I would say, when you look at Vasyl Lomachenko, and you can see that from all of the experience in the amateurs that he has with nearly 400 fights. Now, when we look at Devin Haney, what he brings to the table, Devin Haney is a fighter who, like I said, just recently beat George Kambosos twice, went to Australia, which takes some balls to become a world champion, and he's a fighter who used to train out of the Mayweather boxing gym. He's a guy who learned from some really great boxing minds growing up. He's got his father, Bill Haney, obviously involved in his career. He's going to be the trainer for this fight. He's obviously known Devin his whole life, worked with him, and everything like that. And when I look at Devin Haney, very mature for his age. That's something that I actually met Devin Haney in New York City when Lomachenko was fighting Jorge Linares, and I got to see him outside one of the hotels right across the street from Madison Square Garden. And what struck me is just how mature this guy was. And I think at that time he was maybe 21 or 20, extremely young, and I just was very impressed by that. And when you look at Devin Haney, what he brings to the table, he's got an outstanding jab. He's a very accurate puncher. His right hand is very good as well. And his left hook is a punch that he'll occasionally use that's also a great weapon of his. He's very effective in the clinch, and he's also very good at dictating the pace of fights, and he makes fighters do what he wants in the ring. And that's where you see the maturity, where he's such a young fighter, but he acts like he's a guy who's had he's 35 years old and has had 40 professional fights. That's one thing that's really impressive about Devin Haney when I look at him as a fighter. Now, when I look at both of these guys and I talk about some advantages one has over one another in this matchup, let me first get into some of the advantages that I believe Lomachenko has in this fight. So when I look at Lomachenko, I think that he has the advantages in terms of experience. He's fought a lot different fighters. He's fought better fighters than Devin Haney. He's also a guy who I believe is the better inside fighter between the two of these fighters. I also think he's better at fighting out of the clinch. He has more versatility in his game, in my opinion, offensively and defensively as well. More consistent body puncher of the two fighters, I would also say. And that's just the biggest thing to me, is just Lomachenko. I would say the biggest difference between these two guys is it's harder to get a rhythm on Lomachenko than it is for Devin Haney. Now, Devin Haney, in my opinion, when you look at him and the advantages he brings to this fight, he is massive in this matchup. He has, I think, 7 or 8 inch reach advantage going into this fight. He is a much bigger fighter. Physically, he's going to be the stronger fighter of the two. Now, also when I look at Devin Haney, he's very fresh. He doesn't have the same sort of miles that Lomachenko has over his career. Like you see his last fight versus Ortiz. I wouldn't say that was his best performance I've seen out of Loma, but it's interesting to note in this fight because Devin Haney's so fresh. He's so young. He's got that really no miles on the clock at all. I also look at Devin Haney And I look at him and I think that he's a little bit, in my opinion, I think he's got the better job of the two fighters. And he's a better outside fighter, in my opinion, when I look at both of these guys in this matchup. Now, some keys that I'm going to be looking for in this fight, guys, when I'm watching this matchup. Let's start with Lomachenko, what I'm going to be looking for from him. Now, Lomachenko, the way he fights, and he's always feinting, and he's trying to assess what his opponent is doing, you'll see him constantly start slow in fights. So that's something that I want to see in this matchup, because I do not think that, like when he fought Teofimo Lopez, I do not believe that Lomachenko can let 3 or 4 rounds slip away in this matchup against such a skilled fighter like Devin Haney. So that's something to look off right off the bat if you're going to beat Lomachenko. Also, I'm looking to see him utilizing to get out of the clinch when Devin Haney is clinching him. I want to see Lomachenko using a lot of body work and also just breaking out of the clinch and just being frustrating for Devin Haney. He cannot let Devin Haney dictate the pace of this fight. Lomachenko has to fight at his fight, and he's the one who has the versatility, and he's the one who has the experience, and he's really got to use it in this matchup. Also, when I look at Devin Haney, some vulnerabilities defensively that I've seen out of him is that rare lead hand of Lomachenko, I think, is going to have a lot of success in this fight. It's something that Jojo Diaz had success for against Devin Haney. And also, Devin Haney late versus Linares. Linares started touching him up, and he hurt Devin Haney in that last round of that fight. And Lomachenko, that's one thing you can say about this guy. People have their criticisms of him, that's fine. But he is excellent down the stretch in championship rounds and fights, and there's no debate on that. So I'd like to see him utilize that advantage in this fight and ultimately make sure that he is using all of his skills in this matchup, and he cannot get off to that late start in this fight. Also, another thing to look out for in this matchup is Devin Haney uses his jab so much, and it's such a great weapon for him. Lomachenko, though, is also very good at slipping jabs. That's something to watch out for in this fight, just the way his style is. He's an excellent counter puncher off jab. So if you're going to throw a lazy jab, or if you're not going to be committed 100%, you're going to make a mistake, Lomachenko can catch you off that, and he's done that many times in his career. So that's just something that I think he's going to have some success in this fight, in my opinion. Now, when I look at some keys for Devin Haney in this fight, I think obviously the big key is utilizing his best weapons, right? So we're talking about the jab. So Devin Haney's got to use that jab. Now, some success that Teofimo Lopez had against Lomachenko is doubling up on that jab to frustrate that lead hand of Lomachenko, which he's so prevalent in using to counterpunch and using offensively as well. Doubling that up is going to give Lomachenko some different looks. Another key thing in this fight as well is you see Lomachenko with all the pivots that he does. Devin Haney's got to pivot with him and move to the side also when Lomachenko is doing that. So then that way Lomachenko cannot take the side advantage on him and land these shots that he wants to, while Devin Haney can't defend himself. So that's a big thing, is moving with Lomachenko, I think, is going to be crucial in this fight. And that's something good that Teofimo Lopez really did when you look at his matchup versus Lomachenko. Next on the agenda as well, I think, for Devin Haney, I'd like to see him mix in a little bit more of his hooks in this fight, because I think that, for example, when Lomachenko likes to get out on the side and he likes to do that pivot, that left hook in particular could be a weapon that he could use in this fight that would kind of catch Lomachenko off guard and make him think twice about pivoting out. If you just throw the 1-2 against Lomachenko and you clinch, I just think he's too smart of a fighter to get caught up in that constantly throughout this fight. He's going to figure out your rhythm. He's going to figure that out. He's going to counter you off that. He's going to feint. He's going to set you up. And I just think for Devin Haney, you got to use those hooks more in this fight than he has in the past, in my opinion, because some of his offense is predictable. And I also think a big key for Devin Haney in this matchup, what I'd like to see him do as well, is you see that Lomachenko is so heavy on that front foot that at times if he wants to just break the rhythm of Lomachenko, he literally can just step back and Lomachenko's going to have to reset. And I think that's going to be huge in this fight, is Devin Haney defensively making Lomachenko reset so he can't get off these combinations and these different angles and everything that Loma is known for. So those are just some keys, I think, guys, and things I'm looking for in this matchup. Now, ultimately, my prediction for this fight, so But this is a really tough fight. I mean, both of these guys are so skilled. You look at Devin Haney, and a lot of times when it's a close fight like this, the man who is massively bigger, you have to take him as a favorite, in my opinion. Now, and saying that, when I look at this fight, I have a feeling that Lomachenko pulls off a decision in this matchup, and I'm going to tell you guys why I think, in my opinion. I think that Haney has not fought anybody remotely close to level Lomachenko in his career so far. I think Lomachenko's versatility, his ability late in fights where I've seen Devin Haney struggle a little bit, I think is also going to be a big key for Loma. I also think that on the inside, Devin Haney is going to struggle with him, and he's not going to be able to clinch him and control him. And I think that Lomachenko is going to be able to dictate the pace better and make Haney work. And I also think that Haney, that he's a huge for this weight class. I think this weight cut is going to affect him as well. And the way that Loma's fighting side to side, constantly making you move, body shots, not knowing where his shots are coming from, his counters, things like that. I think the unpredictability of Lomachenko. And I also think that another big key when people look at this fight, right, they say just follow the Teofimo Lopez game plan. Now, when I look at Teofimo and Devin Haney, I agree that they have some similarities, but I would say that Devin Haney is a better technical boxer of the two fighters. Now, however, a huge factor to look at is Teofimo Lopez hits a lot harder than Devin Haney does, and he also has more versatility in his offense. You got to worry about uppercuts. You got to worry about him jabbing the body. You got to worry about hooks from weird angles that Lopez has. And also, Joey Gamache did an excellent job in Teofimo Lopez's corner, and since that fight, he's never looked the same, in my opinion. So, there's just many aspects to look at in this matchup. Ultimately, though, guys, I'm going to go with Lomachenko on an upset in this fight to win a decision against Devin Haney. I think it's going to be close, though, guys, and I think Haney is going to win some of the early rounds. And I expect Lomachenko to have a huge second half of this fight, and I think he gets it done. I just like his experience. I like the overall versatility. I like the amateur pedigree. I like a lot of what he's bringing to the table, but it's going to be very tough because Devin Haney is a guy who I think very highly of. He's a fighter that I look at this matchup and I just see how much he's improved, because if you asked me 3 years ago if Vasyl Lomachenko and Devin Haney were fighting, I would say no problem. Lomachenko take care of him. That's an easy fight for Lomachenko at that point. But now I look at this as a true 50-50 fight. And you got Devin Haney, who is continuing to improve. He's continuing to get better. So it's going to be very interesting. He's such a technical fighter. And I think that people, they talk about Devin Haney's power. However, you got to remember, yes, he doesn't have amazing power, but his skills are what pay the bills. And that's something very important to note. However, I think Lomachenko has a couple great fights still left in him. And I look for Lomachenko to win a decision in this fight. Let me know what you guys think on this matchup. It's going to be very divisive, I think, around boxing fans. Nonetheless, we're going to get a great card, great undercard as well. And make sure if you're tuned in May 20th to watch this fight that you check out Katie Taylor and Chantal Cameron also fight in Ireland earlier in the day. Alright guys, thank you very much for tuning in and checking out the video. Appreciate you guys, and if you like the video, please subscribe. Thank you very much.